24 hours on from one of the most heartbreaking experiences of my life. One of the single-handedly most deflating moments I have ever experienced in a football stadium. And I'm back in Glasgow. So it's finally time to talk about it. Might be a wee bit late, but Bayern Munich won, Celtic won. Let's talk about that. If you haven't, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It's nice to see you. And apologies for such a late match reaction. I only got back from Munich this evening around 5 o'clock tonight, and I think you can understand how difficult it is to get one of these match reactions done when you're out of a stadium at 11 o'clock at night. You've got a flight at 9 o'clock in the morning, very quick turnaround. The last thing on my mind was getting a camera and talking about this game, because for as proud as I was of Celtic last night, I genuinely haven't felt a low like that when it comes to football. There's been some low moments in my life, trust me, but that was something I don't think I've ever experienced. I just sat there at the full-time whistle, and people who might have passed me at the game would have seen me in that away section last night, just heartbroken and just sitting staring into what felt like an eternal void, a void of just sheer depression. And I've never felt anything like it for the longest time in that game, as Celtic kept themselves in the game at 0-0 and then finally got themselves a goal which was more than deserved. I was genuinely sitting there thinking, we're going to do this. We are going to get this at least to extra time. We're going to beat Bayern Munich over 90 minutes at the Allianz Arena. But in typical Champions League nature, and just I can't even word it. It was something that was like, I thought we were getting some divine intervention for a moment, that Celtic were going to pull off this miraculous, famous win that would be spoke about for years. But I was wrong, and through no fault of the players on the park, through no fault of the manager, through no fault of anybody's, Celtic concede one of the most heartbreaking goals you're ever going to see. God knows how they put up with losing a Europa League final in penalties, by the way, because last night was, wow, horrendous, absolutely horrendous, and as I said, I've never really felt anything like it. So it is time to finally talk about it. It's time to cover the game, and I don't even know where you begin, because there is just so much, for as negative as a result as it was in the end, because of the nature of how things happened. Let me make this clear. A draw at the Allianz is a fantastic result for Celtic. You're talking about, I met some great people in Munich over the course of the last few days. A few fantastic German supporters as well. But all had the same thing to say. How many do you think Celtic will concede tonight? And they were all confident that the Bayern would score 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 goals. So to go over there, play the way we did, and be walking out of there with a draw is a fantastic result on paper, but obviously the negativity comes in the manner we concede a 90th minute equaliser and the manner of how we exit the competition. And as I said, it's through no fault of the players, it's through no fault of the tactics. We tried our absolute hardest. Sometimes your hardest just isn't enough. And honestly, it should have been last night, because I think you could argue that Celtic were the better of the two teams. Celtic, to a man, were fantastic last night. Absolutely fantastic. I have genuinely never been so proud of watching a Celtic team in Europe, and we're watching the progress of something very special. I truly believe that, and I think a lot of us have been convinced of that as well in the last 24 hours. And over the course of this leg, last week's performance and this week's performance, over the course of both games, especially when you consider the expectation level of the game on both sides, I think that you can make the very genuine argument that Celtic were the better team. We had pundits, apparently I didn't watch the coverage, but we had pundits like Alan Shearer last night leaning to the side of the conversation where they were blatantly, they were not hiding any blatantly obvious desire to see Celtic win the game because of how impressed they were by us. And these games are so hard to win, and sometimes you've got so much going against you, whether it is just the quality of the other side, the venue you're playing at, the referee decisions. You've got so much going against you sometimes that it makes it like it's like climbing Ben Nevis with 50 people strapped to your back. But Celtic made this look like a tie that they were so up for, to the extent that you'd think that they were the ones that came into the game as favourites, because last night at the Allianz, I saw a Celtics team that was so composed, and that's what's most important. This is the point I'm trying to lead into here. One of the most important things that I took away from the game across both legs, but in particular last night, is the composure in this Celtic side. To go to a place like that, to go and get a result like that, but to play in the manner that they did. Celtic could have had 3 or 4 goals yesterday. And Bayern Munich obviously could have scored goals of their own. There was a couple of chances they probably should have taken. It's not as if Celtic's chances are suddenly ifs, buts and maybes and Bayern's aren't. But Celtic were making convincing chances regularly in a game where normally your back would be to the wall. The way the game was managed was absolutely tremendous. And we have got a very special, elite coach at this club. One that needs to be backed. One that needs to be given the tools to build on this, and one that needs to be given a new contract. Now, that's a topic we'll come on to more towards the end of the video, how we go forward from here and what comes next. But, you know, we've seen that Celtic side last night just so composed. This is the same Celtic side who went to Dortmund earlier in the season and were on the receiving end of something that was horrific to watch. And we were the laughingstock of Europe. And it's not the first time, it certainly won't be the last time, but sometimes you have an off night, and I truly believe deep down that that was an off night, because across this whole competition, Celtic have been unbelievable. They've been unbelievable at Celtic Park, in Munich, in Bergamo in Italy, in Zagreb. They have been fantastic, and don't let anybody take that away from us. Don't let any of these Rangers supporters online, there's not even a point in biting to them, because it's just pure jealousy is all it is. They're trying to turn it up in the Thursday night competition, while turning up and saying to us that we had it easy and we had this run that was meant to happen, and we were meant to get this far with how easy we got it, and that our result against Bayern last night meant nothing. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to it, because it's not the level-headed ones you're trying to argue with when you're having these conversations. What Celtic have done has been so impressive, and the maturity of this side to go there last night and play the way they did and manage the game they did is the signs of a team who are getting it in Europe. And I hope it's a group of players, especially that core of the real top stars, you know, your Maidas, your Kuhns, your Jotas. I really hope that that is a group of players who can stick together and seeing something special. I've used the example of Martin O'Neill's team a lot today, talking to different people that I've met on my travels, or my mates or family or whatnot. But Martin O'Neill had such a successful Celtic side, and a lot of it was down to the fact that the loyalty he managed to get out of those players. You know, the likes of Henrik Larsson, the likes of Chris Sutton, the likes of Stilian Petrov and all the rest of it. They stayed at Celtic for a number of years when they were unbelievable. Their stock was very, very high, and they stuck with Martin O'Neill. They stuck with the team, and that's what we need out of this group of players. And I know that in the year 2025, that's really, really hard. You've got to throw money at folk. You've got to make a lot of promises. You've got to try and fight a losing battle when you're at a club like Celtic. But if we can keep this core group of players together, there is something special bonding between them. And last night was all the proof in the pudding that is the case. So yeah, I leave with such disappointment. As I said, one of the most deflating moments of my life when that equaliser went in. I just sat there emotionless through it all, and I've never felt quite a low like that at football. But what I did manage to see upon leaving the game, and what I have managed to see over the past 24 hours since the conclusion of the game, has been the same message conveyed by every Celtic fan, every Celtic podcaster, every Celtic tweeter and everything else, that there is something genuine to believe in this Celtic team in European football and getting to this next level. And one that I can safely say, in my conscious lifetime, since I can remember following Celtic, I've never felt like this about a Celtic side. I have never been as optimistic about a Celtic side as this. And people will go, this is short memories. Think back to Ange's Celtic team and how big we were on that and how confident we could make a dent in Europe. There was never the sufficient evidence like there is right now after last night to suggest this is the first time in my lifetime it's been there. I know we done so well in 2012. We beat Barcelona. We went toe-to-toe with Benfica, and we beat Spartak, and we got to the last 16. But it was a team under Lennon at a very different time in Scottish football, when we didn't have competition in the league, and when a lot of the top players were just kind of coming and going. This is different now. And I truly believe we have something special bonding here. Just try and keep these lads together. And that was what I tried to take away amongst the sadness and deflation of last night, that there is something very, very exciting happening at Celtic. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to the football played itself. And as I kind of mentioned earlier in this video, to a man, we were brilliant last night. I'm not going to sit here and say that anybody let me down. I'm not going to sit here and say somebody wasn't good enough. Now, I see there's a wee bit of discourse online about certain players who maybe didn't pull their weight as much as others, or not necessarily pull their weight, but just didn't have the game, quality of game as some of the teammates on the side. But I'm not going to sit here and moan about anybody, because results like last night and moments like last night don't come from an individual. They don't come from one or two players. They come from an 11 playing in unison and doing what they've done as a system, as a team. And I think every player deserves their credit for that last night, from goalkeeper to striker, from top to bottom. I just think that everybody was so good. I've seen discourse people saying Hatate was off the boil, and if he was substituted, then we had a different result. I think that's so incredibly harsh on Reo Hatate, to be quite honest, and that's why I won't be getting too bogged down in the supposed negatives of last night. They went, as I said, man-to-man against Bayern and one-upped them in every area. I think we kept their attack very, very quiet. We defended so well, especially in the full-back areas. Bayern were really suffocated in certain areas of the park over periods of time in the game. They were struggling for creativity down the left and right-hand side. They tried to come through the middle, and Vickers and Trusty were forcing them to think again. It was just a great defensive display, a really interesting attacking display, because the reality in these games is you don't get a lot of the ball, you don't get as many chances, but through our press and through the way that we attack football and the way that we try and counter opponents in these sorts of games, we made the chances and we made something exciting out of it. So it wasn't a case of Celtic sitting there for 90 minutes, being on the receiving end of an arse pounding, and then striking when the iron was hot and getting a goal. No, we could have had more. We should have had more. And if finishing was maybe just that wee bit better, if we had that clinical edge to us, we could have been 2 or 3 up. So it swings and roundabouts. I've already made this point. You know, it swings and roundabouts. Bayern could have took their chances. It could have been a very different game. Celtic could have taken more of theirs and it could have been a very different game, but I was just so proud of how we navigated the game itself, and so many players have something to leave the Allianz with their head held high about. I know McGregor was seen visibly upset about it. Trust me, I was also visibly upset about it, but it's one of those ones where he can walk off, and so like many other of his teammates can walk off that park and be so proud of some of their performances. I'm going to try and run through some of them just now. Alistair Johnston, arguably his best game in a Celtic shirt since signing. Unbelievable. An absolute rock of a guy, showing that I've never been in doubt of Alistair Johnston. He's one of my favourite outfield players. I've been very vocal about that since the minute he got here. I had a really good feeling about him. But remember when we were scouting him at the World Cup and we were seeing what he could do, and we're seeing a lot of that Alistair Johnston in these sorts of games. You know, the biggest stage, the international biggest stage, club football's biggest stage, and he's translating that well. But he was just keeping everybody in his back pocket over that right hand side, and it was equally matched by the man at left back. I think that Brendan Rodgers made the hard but correct decision to drop Greg Taylor, and I'm not a reactionary fan in the slightest, as you know. I try my best not to be, but I think that you could see in a game of this magnitude at this level, there is a reason why Greg Taylor does struggle. And it's because there is levels in football, and I just don't think Greg Taylor is that level. Whereas Jeffrey Schlupp, a guy with over 300 Premier League appearances for Crystal Palace, for Leicester City, a Premier League winner, and just general veteran footballer at the top level, he just looked so natural. And I had no stress down that left-hand side because he was arguably my man of the match, Jeffrey Schlupp. I want Celtic to sign him permanently. I want him to give him a contract. Now, I don't know what kind of fee he will demand. I don't know if he'll have much, wage he'll demand. I know he's a free agent, and I don't know if he'll have much of a desire to be back up to Kieran Tierney. I think that's one of the other things to take away from Jeffrey Schlupp's performance, is the fact that, wow, you think when Tierney's back in this team, who's even better than Jeffrey Schlupp, it's going to be such a huge addition to this defence. But Schlupp is just somebody who I would love to have here. If that's the level of performance that you can get off him in a game against Bayern Munich, I just think he'd be a great signing, a great addition to this squad, a great veteran to have in the squad as well. And you could see all of that in his performance last night. Really astute, really mature. And that's not to say that Greg Taylor isn't a mature footballer, because he is, and I'll give him his due for that. I just think that there is levels in football, very clear levels. and Schlupp is one above for these types of games. And that's why we had so much success in the fullback areas, because we had two really good fullbacks playing last night. Defensively, we were great. Even, do you know what? It's heartbreaking for Vickers the way the goal gets conceded, because he doesn't do anything wrong. And I seen someone, I think it was an English TikToker, and this isn't a dig at said TikToker, but I seen him say Vickers just switches off for a second. I don't even think he does. I'm not just trying to blindly defend our players here or absolve them from any mistakes, but I don't even think he does switch off. He does his job, and he's just so unlucky that Alphonso Davies is where he is and gets in. I mean, he gets barely a connection on the ball. But Schmeichel, you know, everybody in that defence, man, just so bloody good. Schmeichel, the saves he made, showing why he was such a good, smart signing from Brendan Rodgers, and that's why you trust the manager, because he makes signings like that. Even when folk online don't think it's a good signing on paper, the manager gets the performances out of them to prove why he knows best. And as I said, going up the park, we were just as good. You know, midfield, I thought Engels, McGregor were absolutely fantastic. Hatate's biggest problem isn't that he had a poor game for me. I think he had a generally fine, decent game. I think the biggest problem with Hatate is recently there's something that's really held him back when it comes to decision making. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. I don't know if it's just irrational thinking, or he can't deny he's not in this Celtic side. And when I say in, I mean in. You see the photos of him coming off the park with Rodgers last night, and I think everybody's saying the same thing, that like this is a Celtic man, somebody that loves this club, loves playing for this club, and gives it his all. And a lot of the body language police seem to think he's not, but I think last night, if you analyse the body language and his facial expressions, you can see how much he loves this club and how much he values playing for it. But the thing is with Hatate, he was doing so much off the ball, and even with the ball, to open up the game for others, make himself available at times as well, just generally creating options and taking the best of other options. But it was like the last thing that he would have to do, or the split second decision things, and he was just getting them wrong, whether it was a pass or a shot, or it's just, I don't know. Remember Maida was very much like this, like they've swapped places mentally as a footballer. Like Maida has become this very dangerous, clinical, sharp thinking player, when we used to criticise him for being great up until the final product. And I think it's just like switched with Rio and over the last 6 months or so. And I know how good a player he is, and I know that he won't let that get him down last night, because he was fine. He was good. But McGregor and Engels, brilliant. And the front three, man. Jota is just so special. So special. It's a shame that he's not quite up to the full fitness we need him yet. I was gutted to see him go off the park. Not so much gutted to see Ida come on. I was really wanting to get Ida into the game, in fact. But Jota going off, I was kind of like, man, because he was beating his man and he was just doing those special things that get you moments in the game. Just so good. And Maida and Kuhn just... I mean, the goal comes from just brilliant attacking press. What Celtic have been using as their strength over the last few years since Ange Postecoglou first came to the club, really kind of worrying defenders. I mean, the Bayern defenders looked, novice last night at times because of what we were doing to them off the ball in our final third. So, yeah, I mean, Maida and Kuhn and Jota, all three of them just deserve... I love them. I want them to stay here till the end of their careers, and I know there's going to be a shit ton of interest in especially Kuhn this coming summer. Throw every fucking penny you can at him. Please, just keep him at the club. It's a beautiful finish, by the way. I think those are the kind of finishes in a game of that magnitude you can really overthink, and you end up hitting it straight at the keeper, especially when you're going one-on-one with arguably the best goalkeeper of my generation. Manuel Neuer is arguably the best keeper of the past 20 years. And you're going one-on-one with him, and you can really start to overthink. And Kuhn, it's like a big middle finger to Bayern for releasing him, isn't it? And it's just brilliant. He's got the whole of Germany talking about him. I seen a German guy on TikTok saying he's right now the best winger from Germany on this planet, and it's hard to argue with the way that he's playing, because he's not just doing it in the Scottish Premiership, he's doing it in the Champions League, he's doing it against Bayern, he's doing it against Leipzig, he's doing it against all these other sides, and it's a great goal. It's a great goal, but the place went nuts up that way, and honestly, for those who weren't there, I wish you've seen it. I really do wish you've seen it. But they were so good, and they deserved the win, man. As you can see, I'm still a bit deflated talking about it. It still hurts to think about how close we were last night. But they worked so hard. The subs were all great. As I said, I can't fault any of the boys last night. I really can't, because it was a real team effort. in every area of the pitch where we had to excel, we excelled. I'm starting to fear a real danger of dragging this video on way too long when I know we can talk about it on the podcast and talk about it tomorrow in a live stream or whatever. So I'll try and wrap it up. But what I was trying to allude to earlier in the video was there are the building blocks there in plain sight for us to see. Dermot Desmond, Peter Lawwell, Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay and every other Celtic board member needs to be wise this summer. They need to give Brendan Rodgers everything he wants. Everything he wants. Whether that's a specific player, or a specific position, or a certain amount of money, give it to Brendan Rodgers. This is my moment of praise for you in this video, Brendan. My hero, my GOAT, my king. It's no secret that I am one of the biggest Brendan Rodgers fans out there. It was the day after Ange Postecoglou resigned from Celtic, I had a video on this channel titled Why Brendan Rodgers Should Be the Next Celtic Manager, and I was so confident in making that video because and I've said this for years on this channel, even when he was at Leicester City, I truly believe we have one of the best managers in Europe, not just Scotland, not just the UK. I think we have one of the best managers in Europe. A manager who many top European sides will still have undoubted interest in. He's elite. An absolute elite coach. And I made this point coming back today from Edinburgh Airport when we were in the car getting a lift up the road. If Rodgers was to hypothetically walk tomorrow, the next appointment is a regression. And that doesn't mean you can't be optimistic about a new manager or you can't think they'll be good or whatever, but I don't think Celtic get a manager better. I think it is literally impossible for Celtic to get a better manager than Brendan Rodgers. So you need to do everything to appease him, to keep him at the club, to give him a desire and a drive to do things that isn't just winning league titles and domestic trebles. He clearly wants to build something special with Celtic, and whether that's for the sake of his own resume or whether it's for the sake of this great football club, which I believe it is, because he loves the club and he loves the supporters, I don't care what his motivation is behind it. What I do care is that Celtic matches ambitions, because he wants to be remembered as a manager who done something special for Celtic, and he was very close to it last night. And people won't forget how close he was to it last night. But now it's the board's job to match his ambitions, to match everything he sees and his visions at Celtic Football Club. And I expect to see that in the summer. 110%. So I better wrap it up there, because I've procrastinated since I got back, and I've been knackered and done in, to be honest. So I'd kind of put off making this video for the last few hours, and it's going to be up late tonight. But I hope you enjoyed it, and before I do go, a very quick shout out. I just want to say to everybody who I met in Munich, whether I spoke to you for 10 seconds or I sat with you at a pub for hours, this might sound a wee bit cringy or whatever, I appreciate you all, man. Every single one of you. I met so many lovely people in Munich over these last few days, and I genuinely, it's quite heartwarming, not to get all soppy and cringy. Trust me, I'm sober as I say this right now, but I genuinely met so many people, whether they were casual viewers of the channel and had seen 1 or 2 videos, whether they were diehards and been watching every video for the last fucking 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I just met so many genuinely lovely people. I've never had a bad experience with anybody in my life, and on any of these trips or anywhere. And I can only appreciate you guys for showing so much love to the channel. And it was just, yeah, so many of you. I have a list of people that I've met and followed on Instagram or whatever. If I tried to name them all, then we'd be here all week. So you know who I'm talking about. If I had an interaction with you, it was a pleasant one, and I appreciate the love, guys. It's really nice. And yeah, sadly we weren't leaving in the highest of spirits though, were we? We'll get them next year. Lads, and ladies, thank you for watching tonight, and I'll be back tomorrow to try and digest a wee bit more about the game, and of course heading into the weekend. So yeah, take care of yourselves, God bless, and see you all next time.